Dear students, welcome to my online class. Hope you all are well, staying at home, following the rules of health, and maintaining social distance. After a break of a few days, once again I am connected with you online, and I believe, my dear students, you are attending ongoing online classes very attentively. My today's topic is sentence connectors. Actually, this class is going to be my second class on sentence connectors. I have already completed my first class on sentence connectors, and in that class, I told you there are a huge number of connectors we use in English language, and their number is so many that it's not possible to include all the connectors in a single class. That is why, my dear students, I have divided my classes on sentence connectors into two parts, part 1 and part 2. I have already finished part 1, and in that class, I talked about different types of connectors. I explained how the question on connectors is set in the question paper and how to answer connectors in the answer scripts. I also discussed different types of connectors to show the relationship between the sentences. And in my today's class also, that is part 2, I will show you different types of connectors. So in this sense, my today's class is not a new one. Rather, it is the continuation of my previous class on sentence connectors. And dear students, you know, I present my class. I always present my class through slides, and my today's class is no exception. And again, I will present my today's class on slides. So, dear students, let's move to slides. Dear students, here you can see my opening slide on sentence connectors. And as I have already said, today I'm going to present part 2. Today, I will also try to make you acquainted with some commonly used connectors to show relationship between sentences. And to do that, I will take you to my next slide. Here in this slide, you can see I have made a table, and here you can see, dear students, to show comparison. If we want to show comparison between the sentences, what type of connectors we use? Here I have given some connectors that are basically used to show comparison between sentences. In the same way, likewise, similarly, in comparison, like, in contrast, as with, while, etc. These are the connectors, my dear students, that are used to show comparison between sentences. I have given an example in the right part of my table, and now I'm going through this example. A computer or a smartphone have some common features. So, from the very beginning line, my dear student, we can understand we are going to make a comparison between a computer and a smartphone. In a computer, we can do the work of writing. So here we face the first gap in number A. A smartphone can also be used for the purpose of writing something. In the previous line, we talked about computer in which we can do the work of writing. Similarly, a smartphone can also be used to do the work of writing. So here we can see a type of comparison between a personal computer and a smartphone. Then people use a computer to do any type of calculation. We can make calculation by using a computer. The same work can be done, that means the work of calculation can be done by using a smartphone. Again, there is a comparison between a smartphone and a computer. Again, we use a computer to play music or play games. And we have the third gap here in number C. A smartphone can also be used in these purposes. So, throughout the passage, my dear students, we can see a kind of comparison between a personal computer and a smartphone. Thus, we can say that a smartphone is a good replacement for a computer. So, in this passage where comparison is made between a computer and a smartphone, which type of connectors we should use. Now look at the solution section. In number A, we have used similarly. Again, I will read the text with the right connector in the gaps. A computer and a smartphone have some common features. In a computer, we can do the work of writing. Similarly, I have chosen the connectors similarly in number A. Similarly, a smartphone can also be used for the purpose of writing something. People use a computer to do any type of calculation. Likewise, again, you notice the use of connector here, likewise, which can be used to show comparison. Likewise, the same work can be done by using a smartphone. Again, we use a computer to play music or play games. In the same way, the third connector I have used in number C. In the same way, a smartphone can also be used in these purposes. Thus, we can say that a smartphone is a good replacement for a computer. So, my dear students, this is how we use connectors to show comparison between two things or between two ideas or between two persons. Now, move to the next slide. To show illustration, if you want to illustrate something or somebody or some idea, then what type of connectors we basically use? Here are some list. For example, for instance, in other words, to show that, such as in the case of etc. I have just included some examples here, but there are also many other connectors that can also be used to show illustration. I have included the most commonly used connectors here in this slide. And like the previous slide, we have another example to show illustration and what type of connectors we are going to use to illustrate something. A smartphone is an effective alternative to a personal computer. Again, the topic I have fixed on a smartphone and a personal computer. What is the description of the opening line here? A smartphone is an effective alternative to a personal computer. And the first gap in number A, we can use a smartphone to do the job that is usually performed with the help of a computer. In the previous line, we have said a smartphone is an alternative. That means a smartphone can substitute, or a smartphone can replace a personal computer. And the same kind of description, that means what we have said in the first sentence is we are trying to illustrate the same thing, same statement in another type of language, in a different type of language. That is why the second sentence, that is, we can use a smartphone to do the job that is usually performed with the help of a computer. So, my dear students, this second sentence illustrates the statement stated in the previous one. And then number B, we have another gap. Any type of calculation can be done by using a smartphone instead of a computer. Many other activities are now accomplished through a smartphone. And we have the last gap in number C here. Many other activities, we can do many other jobs by using a smartphone. So many other activities are now accomplished through a smartphone. And what are those activities? They are composing text, playing music or games, learning weather forecast, etc. So this is the passage where we find illustration of activities of a smartphone. So now look at the solution here. I am reading the text once again with solution, obviously. A smartphone is an effective alternative to a personal computer. And in gap number A, I have used in other words. So in other words, we can use a smartphone to do the job that is usually performed with the help of a computer. So as the second sentence is just illustrating the statement stated in the previous one, so we can use in other words, or for example, or something like that. I have given, or I have chosen the option in other words. And in number B, I have used for example. For example, any type of calculation can be done by using a smartphone instead of a computer. So it is also giving an illustration of function of a smartphone. And what can we do with the help of a smartphone, and what we can do with the help of a computer. There is a kind of similarity, and we are going to illustrate the similarity between a smartphone and a personal computer. Many other activities are now accomplished through a smartphone. We can do many other jobs, or a smartphone can also be used to do many other works. And which are these words? These are composing text, playing music or games, learning weather forecast, etc. And in the gap number C, I have used such as. And this is how we can use connectors to show illustration, my dear students. So here you can see what types of connectors we use to show illustration. Now go to my next slide. To show cause and effect. If you want to show any region, if two sentences are connected by the sense of reason, then we use since, as, because, for, etc. All these connectors show causes or reasons. And what type of connectors we use to show result or consequence or effect? And here you can see as a result, consequently, in consequence, therefore, thus, hence, that is why, so, etc. All these connectors are very frequently used to show a result or effect or consequence, whatever you say. And again, I have included an example in the right hand part of my table. Now I'm going to read the text. Robin is a good student. He studies regularly. So in these two lines, we get some information about a boy, that is Robin. What is Robin? Robin is a good student. He studies regularly. And for the first time, we face a gap here in number A. He does well in the examination. He is a good student. He studies regularly and he does well in the examination. So he does well in the examination. Actually, it indicates the result of his regular study. And that is why in number A, I have chosen as a result as a connector. And then in number B, we have the second gap. He maintains the rules of health and takes exercise regularly. He hardly becomes sick. Notice, my dear students, here, though the connector comes at the very beginning of the sentence, actually, it is not connecting to sentences. Rather, it is connecting to clauses. So here we have to use a clause level connector. He maintains the rules of health. So from this description, we better understand Robin, the boy Robin, is very careful about his health. He maintains the rules of health and takes exercise regularly. He hardly becomes sick. So as he maintains, or since he maintains the rules of health and takes exercise regularly, he hardly becomes sick. And that is why I have selected as the position of the connector in the gap number B. As he maintains the rules of health and takes exercise regularly, he hardly becomes sick. So my dear students, I have chosen as. You can also use here since, and either since or as can be used here in this gap. But as I told you before in the earlier class, never use options, never supply two options or three options for your answer. You should write only one correct answer. That is why I have given just as in gap number B. Now continue the passage. But his elder brother, Rafik, is just his opposite. So what information do we get about Robin? We can see that Robin is a very good student. He studies regularly. He maintains the rules of health. And he takes exercise regularly. And he hardly becomes sick. So Robin has the qualities of a good boy. But what is the case of Robin's brother Rafik? But his elder brother Rafik is just his opposite. He is very irregular in his study. He misses his classes very often. And we find the last gap in number C. He can't make a good result in the examination. So he misses his classes very often. He is very irregular in study, and in consequence, he can't make a good result in the examination. And that is why in gap number C, I have written therefore. You can also use as a result, consequently, in consequence, anything of this, any one of these connectors can be used here, though I have used therefore. So, my dear students, this is how we can use connectors to show cause and effect in the text or in a passage. Now, move to the next slide. Connectors to show conclusion. If we want to show conclusion or if we want to conclude some description, what types of connectors we basically use. And I have included some of them. To conclude, in conclusion, finally, to sum up, in short, above all these connectors indicate the closing of some description. That means if we want to conclude our description, then we can use any of these connectors. And again, I have given an example in the right hand part of my table. Jerry was an honest and dutiful boy. He did many extra works for the convenience of the authoress. He took care of Pat properly during her absence. So, in these lines, we find many information about the boy Jerry, who is very honest and dutiful. And he did many extra works for the convenience of the authoress. That means Jerry was very much careful about the authoress. He took care of Pat properly during her absence. It is also another quality of Jerry. He also chopped wood for her for making fire. That is, Jerry is doing some favor for the authoress. He had the courage to take responsibility on his own shoulder without showing any excuse. Another good quality of Jerry. So all these sentences, in almost in every sentence, we find some proof of Jerry's good qualities, and that is why here in the last sentence we have a gap here, and Jerry was a boy of some rare human qualities. So in the previous sentences, all the previous sentences give us some information about Jerry's benevolent qualities or good qualities, and the last line actually sum up Jerry's good character. That is why it is said Jerry was a boy of some rare human qualities, and as it is the concluding line, or as it gives us the final information of Jerry's character, and the final line is actually summarizing the character of the boy Jerry. So in this gap, I have used to conclude. We also can use here in conclusion or to sum up, in short, above everything. Any one of these can be used here in this last gap. So this is how, my dear student, connectors are used in a passage to show the different types of relationship between the sentences. So you should notice, you should try to find out the true relationship that exists between sentences. It is very much important. At the same time, students must make out the true meaning of the sentences. Unless he can make out the true meaning, the exact meaning of the sentences, then it may not be possible for the student to choose the proper connector in the gaps. That is why I will suggest you to do well in sentence connectors. You should read more text. You should know about the sentence structure, and also about you should enrich your vocabulary skill. And if you do all these jobs, and gradually you will be able to uh, perform very well in the section of sentence connectors. So, my dear students, as I have already said in my previous class, there are so many connectors we frequently use in English language. So, 2 or 3 classes may not be enough to give a full description of all types of connectors. I have included just a few of them, and the most commonly used connectors I have included here in my 2 classes. And from this discussion, you should have uh, an idea about their uses and how we can use connectors, the right connectors, to show the relationship between sentences. So I think these 2 classes will help you a lot for your better preparation of connectors or sentence connectors. So dear students, I'm going to close my today's class, and once again I will meet you with another topic in my next appearance. And till then, stay home, stay safe.